Hey, good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Sure happy that you're here to join us this evening. My name is Dr. Jeffrey Johnson. I'm a professor of international business in the Grehey School. Also, I am the director of the Center for Global Business Studies. And tonight, we're delighted to have a kickoff of our global lecture series, and we're very honored tonight to have Prime Minister Chung join us. We'll have a formal introduction of the speakers shortly, but I want to say for now that this event is being hosted collectively by the Center for Global Business Studies as well as the Eurasia Foundation. So what I'd like to do to start things off this evening is to invite Dr. Violeta Diaz to come up to the podium and make a greeting and welcome from the Grehey School of Business.
Hi, everyone. I'm here tonight to welcome you all to this kickoff event. I'm representing the School of Business, and I'm, here representing our dean, Rowena Ortiz-Walters, who couldn't make it tonight. Thank you all for joining us this evening. Great turnout, so I hope that you join us for the rest of the series as well. I'm proud to be part of the Grehey School of Business. I'm the Associate Dean, and in our school, it is our mission to produce graduates who are skilled, ethical, professional, globally aware, and committed to responsible business practices. We want them to be prepared for careers of meaning and purpose. This series is aligned with our mission, and we're very proud of it. And I want to thank Dr. Lim and Dr. Johnson for their hard work in doing this job. We are honored and delighted to be here tonight with our presentation of Prime Minister Chung. You will have the opportunity to hear in a few minutes from our distinguished guest and to learn about the changing international order and the future of the U.S.-Korea alliance. Before I let President Mingler say a few words, remember that this is just the first presentation of a series, so make sure that you, attend the other events. And one last thing, thank you all for being here, and welcome.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our lecture tonight, The Changing International Order and the Future of the U.S.-Korean Alliance. I am honored to welcome to our campus Prime Minister Chung. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. On behalf of many of our students here, as well as our faculty and staff, we are grateful that you took the time to come visit St. Mary's and to give tonight's lecture, which we are very interested in. I would also like to welcome Mr. John Park, Vice Chair of the President's Committee on the Unification of the Korean Peninsula. Thank you for driving from Houston to be with us this evening, Mr. Park. And finally, welcome to all of our guests and visitors to St. Mary's University. You are always welcome to St. Mary's, as our dozens of students who are here can attest. St. Mary's is all about community and family spirit, so please join our family. Whenever we have a lecture that's of interest to you, you are always welcome. And with that, I welcome Professor Songbae Lim to introduce our speaker.
So before we introduce Prime Minister Sye-Kyun Chung, so we prepare one small special event, so play of Korean folk music by guitar. So today's player is Mr. Andy Sang-hee Lee, so who is a Korean American and then great entrepreneur in San Antonio. So he will play a few music to celebrate this great event. Please welcome Mr. Lee.
I'm going to play two songs. First one is very old Korean traditional song. Maybe every Korean, also over 40 and 50 knows this song. So Maya, Nunaya, so it's in English, mother and sister. Yes. Next song I play is original soundtrack from the movie 태극기, English Brotherhood in War. It's a movie about the Korean War and brotherhood. It's released in 2004. So yeah, 태극기 means Korean flag.
So please give another round of big applause to Mr. Andy Lee. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to introduce tonight's distinguished speaker, the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Korea, His Excellency Sye-Kyun Chung. Prime Minister Chung is a notable Korean politician and leader of a civil society organization. Born as the third of 7 children in a remote Korean mountain village, he was compelled by his family's impoverished circumstances to give up secondary education in order to assist on the family's farm after completing elementary school. In high school, where he enrolled with great difficulty, he persisted in his studies while continuing to work in the school cafeteria. Prime Minister Chung fought against the military dictatorship while studying law at the Korea University. After graduating, he joined a multinational trading firm and spent his 30s in the United States. He subsequently earned an MBA from Pepperdine University in Los Angeles and a PhD degree in business administration from Gyeonggi University in South Korea. On the recommendation of the late President Kim Dae-jung, Nobel Peace Prize laureate, he entered politics in 1995 and has held a variety of important positions over the past 3 decades, including 6 terms as a member of the National Assembly for 24 years, and leaders of the Democratic Party of Korea, and Minister of Commerce, Industry, and Energy, and Speaker of the National Assembly, and the Prime Minister. Notably, as head of the legislative branch in 2016, he presided over the unprecedented impeachment and the judicious resolution of an incumbent president. And from January 2020 to April of the following year, as the 46th Prime Minister of the Republic of Korea, he successfully led Korea's early response to COVID-19. As befits of the moniker Mr. Smile, he is widely regarded as a model of parliamentary democracy who prioritizes political compromise and then reason, who is respected for his impeccable record. Prime Minister Chung has been recognized as the most gentle member of the National Assembly for the past 24 years. During the Asian economic crisis, when a major corruption scandal erupted in Korea, he was the only National Assembly member who refused to accept bribes in a related standing committee. Despite his difficult environment, he gave young people hope by writing his success story with strong will and sincere effort. In addition, he donated 20% of his first salary to his alma mater when he got the first salary, and has been demonstrating his love through monthly donation for over 4 decades. Not only does Prime Minister Chung have a brilliant career, but he has also demonstrated the Christian value of faith, hope, and love. Today, based on his 40 years of experience, he would like to share with you his perspective and wisdom on the changing international relations and the future of US-Korea alliance. I'm confident that Prime Minister Chung's remark will be informative and then thought-provoking, and I'm very privileged to have him as our guest speaker. So please join me in welcoming to the stage His Excellency Sye-Kyun Chung.
Thank you, Professor Sung-Bae-rim, for your generous introduction. I'm happy to be here with you today at St. Mary's University. Thank you, President Thomas Mengler, Associate Dean of School of Business, and Professor Jeffrey Johnson, and all those who made this possible. My first foray into the US was 4 years ago. After graduating from college, I worked at an international trading firm. The 1980s marked a new heyday for US supremacy based on so-called Reaganomics and its faith in the market economy. And this US-led global order of free trade opened new doors for Korea as well. For me personally, I got to experience the US education system. I also gained a unique perspective of a dynamic period in history on the shoulders of a giant, the US. Back then, very few people in the US knew anything about Korea. Most people thought I was from Japan or China. This was natural. Since there was no internet, you couldn't ask ChatGPT, and BTS and Blackpink had yet to be born. Today, many more people are aware of Korea. Here at St. Mary's, King Sejong Institute provides instruction in Korean language and culture. And I've heard that Hallyu events on campus have been popular. Let me begin with a brief history of Korea. For the past century, Korea has emerged from the ruins of colonization and the Korean War, gradually progressing from the periphery of the world to its center. In 2021, the UN Conference on Trade and Development reclassified Korea from a developing economy to a developed one. It was the first time in its history that the UN agency did so. Today, Korea has a top 10 economy, becoming the 7th country with a population of over 50 million to surpass $30,000 in GDP. It has the 6th strongest military in the world and has emerged as a leading democracy in Asia. Korea is also the 7th country to launch a satellite with its own technology, and the 3rd to develop a COVID-19 vaccine and treatment. Furthermore, Korea continues to cultivate soft power through its popular culture. Even if these statistics are unfamiliar, you might know of BTS and Blackpink. Currently, two of the biggest pop groups in the world who hail from Korea. Behind the scenes of Korea's success, the US has played an important role. The 1945 Allied victory in World War II, led by the US, ushered in Korea's independence. In 1950, North Korea invaded the South, starting the Korean War. Again, Korea's very existence was at stake. 16 countries, led by the US, sent armed forces, while 5, including India, provided medical assistance. In particular, some 1.78 million Americans served in the war. Korean War veterans returning many years later express how moved they are by the progress their sacrifice made possible. And even now, something wrong. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yes. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Something was wrong. Korean War veterans returning many years later expressed how moved they are by the progress they sacrifice made possible. And even now, US and Korean soldiers stand shoulder to shoulder, ready to fight tonight, as the motto goes, preserving peace on the Korean Peninsula. We have not forgotten the sacrifices of the American people, and we remain committed to giving back to the international community, which supported us in the past. Current and past Korean administration have aspired to an international position of leadership and responsibility. As a middle power, Korea's own interests are served when the role of international organizations and multilateral cooperation is amplified. Last year, the Yoon Suk-yeol administration announced its foreign policy goal. Korea was to become a global pivotal state that advances freedom, peace, and prosperity. This signifies that Korea is ready to take on a greater role in response to the calls of the international community in East Asia and beyond. Yet, despite the will of the Korean government and people, efforts to expand Korea's international role have stumbled. The obstacle is the ongoing crisis surrounding the Korean Peninsula. In light of this, I want to share with you my thoughts on how Korea should handle the current security crisis, so it can act as a pivotal state and further develop the Korea-US alliance. We currently inhabit a new normal. What's more, we are witness to a changing order. After World War II ended in 1945, the world was defined by liberalism and rule-based order. There were international organizations and standards. The US led the way thanks to its overwhelming military and economic power. And with the end of the Cold War, it seemed like Pax Americana had won. One American political scientist went so far as to call it the end of history. This would have been convenient for the US. But after the heyday of American unipolarity came 2008 global financial crisis. The relative stagnation of the US economy and the rise of China followed. Besides, the course of globalization led by the US gave rise to many negative side effects as well. This has prompted civil resistance and the call for new solutions from around the world. We now stand amid the resulting chaos, but as they say, chaos is the law of nature, order is the dream of man. So from this disorder, we must envision the kind of new international order we want. I trust that as it aspires to become a global pivotal state, Korea will actively contribute to this discussion. far be it from me to suggest radical change. After all, while the existing global order has since come under fire, it was also highly functional in many ways. But before, the US assumed a singular role. Now, more nations, including Korea, need to take on greater responsibility. International cooperation is vital. Exclusionism and unilateralism must thus be rejected. To this end, dividing the world into a liberal and authoritarian opposition is unhelpful. Further polarizing a bipolar system only increases the risk of historic collision. Instead, both sides would be better served by fostering different voices and thereby developing multiple centers of power. Among liberal democracies, the US need allies to help maintain international order and lighten its load. As such, Korea needs to take a greater part in international politics. Further complicating the situation is the growing strategic competition between the US and China. From 1980s, the West, including the US, actively supported reform and opening up in China. This was an attempt to incorporate China into the existing order. The expectation was that China's economy would grow, democracy would spread, and the country would become a responsible stakeholder within international order. China did in fact achieve rapid growth, economic growth, and benefited greatly from the cultural current system. And yet, it appears intent on creating a new international order instead. Last year, NATO stated that China's approach challenges the fundamental premise of a rule-based international order. Such challenge from China has raised tensions with the US. In particular, both countries are competing for the upper hand in technology, as each vies to lead the fourth industrial revolution. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is caught in the crossfire. For now, this remains a strategic competition, but we cannot ignore the possibility that Russia's invasion of Ukraine could precipitate a new Cold War. If so, the world would likely be divided into two blocks. Many states would be pressured to choose between the two. If US-China tensions are mismanaged, the world may face unprecedented upheaval in the near future. I do not mean that the US and China will automatically walk into this trap, but history suggests that when a rising power threatens to displace an established power, the conflict tends to end in war. Right now, all the triggers of such a war are concentrated in East Asia, South China Sea, East China Sea, Taiwan Strait, and Korean Peninsula. There is a strong possibility a dispute will erupt from one of these points, in which case it is highly likely that it will grow from a regional to international dispute. Consequently, we cannot leave the situation only in the hands of the US and China. Nations committed to preventing the radical destruction of international order should send a clear message. The preservation of that order constitutes the collective will of the free world rather than the singular will of US alone. The Russian invasion of Ukraine last February has now extended into the longest international conflict of this scale since World War II. This war has set up a confrontation between liberal democracies versus authoritarian governments, status quo versus change. It is hard to predict the end of the war right now, but the defeat of a major global power like Russia would fundamentally change the structure of the international order. And we need to keep in mind that the consequences of such a change may well be negative rather than positive. I want to avoid any rash assumptions. I note only that if Russia falls or is reduced to China's junior partner, both scenarios would work against a stable world order. Already, the war has impacted East Asia. On one hand, Russia, China, North Korea are forming a northern alliance. Naturally, the US, South Korea, Japan are consolidating their alliance in response. If hostility grows, it will mean heightened instability on the Korean Peninsula, where these two triangular alliances meet. These are troubling developments. On the other hand, national security cooperation between South Korea, the US, and Japan will only become possible when historical resentment between South Korea and Japan are resolved. Despite much national concern, the Yoon administration has demonstrated a unique forward-looking approach to this problem. But notwithstanding the Korean government's preemptive action, Japan has yet to respond in any meaningful way, and public opinion in Korea has accordingly soured. Japan has suggested it would assume a greater military role in the region. Therefore, it needs to prioritize friendly relations with its neighbors by attending to such historical disputes. The Russia-Ukraine war has also negatively affected the global economy. It has hit resource-poor countries and the developing nations especially hard. Continued hardship in such places could inflame public resentment, potentially giving rise to strong armed leaders who are more likely to have nationalist tendencies. That in turn would drive the end of a liberal international order. As the war enters its long-term phase, it is possible that Ukraine's allies may achieve tactical success, but strategic loss. That is, a reorganization of the international order may weaken the liberal powers. It is high time that we explore options for a rational resolution to the war from a big picture perspective. All these factors have resulted in an ever more fragmented global economy. For the past 4 years, the world was structured according to an international division of labor maintained through global cooperation. Now is every country for itself. This has prompted the budding reorganization of the global supply chain. So now, led by the US, new partnerships are in the work. Think of IPF, Indo-Pacific Economic Framework for Prosperity, or Semiconductor and Battery Alliance like CHIPS. Furthermore, America's IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, strives to create domestic jobs by requiring international companies to build factories in the US. I hope, however, that the economic gain of other parties to such regional alliances receives equal consideration. If those nations are to share the burden of defense with the US, their economies need to be strong as well. Last year's IRA has prompted concerns that it put Korean electric vehicles at a serious disadvantage. Similarly, the criteria for new U.S. semiconductor subsidies burden Korean companies with a host of demanding conditions. We therefore welcome the new guidelines released last week by the U.S. Treasury that take into account some of those concerns. All the same, we still have much to figure out. In the spirit of rules of trade, such as the WTO agreements and Korea-US FTA, Korean companies have invested huge sums in the U.S. Going forward, I hope their competitive chances are not undermined by excessive conditions. My hope is that the U.S. Congress does consider long-term national interest over short-term profit in its legislative process. As an ally of the U.S., Korea supports a reorganization of the global supply chain that bolsters the liberal bloc as a whole. Next, I want to highlight the main obstacle that prevents Korea from assuming a more proactive role on the global stage: security on and around the Korean peninsula. As you well know, you can choose your friends, but you cannot choose your neighboring countries. The Korean peninsula's destiny cannot be separated from geopolitics. As a peninsula, Korea stands at the crossroads of land and sea. On one hand, it can function as a bridge or the hub of cultural and economic exchange. On the other, it can also be commandeered as an arena of conflict where various interests and powers clash. From Korea's perspective in the middle, the US and Japan are sea forces, China and Russia make up land forces. This setup makes Korea's security a global matter. And due to its geography, Korea must plan for a future where rising tensions threaten its very survival. Korea is the only place in the world today where an oppressive Cold War setup persists. We must absolutely avoid compounding the conflict with a new Cold War order. But tensions on the peninsula continue to rise. Last year, in the wake of a new South Korean government taking power, North Korea fired some 80 missiles spread across 30 tests in direct defiance of UN resolutions. This year, it has already fired MRLS multi-rocket launchers and ballistic missiles. In 2017, former US President Trump warned of fire and fury if North Korea continued its provocations. Such dramatic language has now ceased, yet North Korea's actions are much more serious now. In response, President Yoon's office proposed an audacious initiative which promises significant support if North gives up its nuclear weapons. The Biden administration also offered to meet anywhere, anytime, without preconditions. North Korea, however, remains unmoved. Last September, it announced a nuclear forces policy law outlining 5 conditions that authorize the North's preemptive use of nuclear weapons. The risk of nuclear war has thus increased. At the same time, North Korea has made clear that it will not be deterred by any sanctions. We should not dismiss this as a mere mind games on their part. The past 30 years serve as a testament to North Korea's resistance in the face of sanctions. Given this situation, rather than allowing it to further deteriorate, it is high time that South Korea and the US collectively come up with a truly creative and audacious initiative. That is, a plan to fundamentally alter North Korea's strategic calculations. It is time to make a final proposal to the North. We need to give peace on one last chance, however slim it may be, rather than sleepwalk our way into the crisis of war. For Korea, the Korea-US alliance is a matter of life and death. It has been critical to preserving peace on the Korean Peninsula in the face of North Korea's continued challenges. In particular, South Korea lacks the means to definitely deter the North's increasingly advanced nuclear and ballistic threats. Notwithstanding the fruits that this successful cooperation has already yielded, this is why peace and stability on the Korean Peninsula call for further reinforcement of the Korea-US alliance. This year marks the 70th anniversary of the Mutual Defense Treaty between the US and Korea, which makes up the foundation of the alliance. At its inception in 1953, the Korea-US alliance was shaped by the asymmetry between the US and the war-ravaged Korea just emerging from the Korean War. Despite the special circumstances of its origins, namely the end of Korean War, the Korea-US alliance is now regarded as a resounding success. But much has changed in the international situation between 70 years ago and now. In light of that change, Korea needs to take on a greater role for the region's stability. In order for the Korea-US alliance to develop into the future, however, the Korean Peninsula's stability must first be secured. In the wake of House Speaker Pelosi's visit to Taiwan last year, military tensions surrounding it have mounted. Now that China has conducted military exercises targeted at Taiwan, the concern is that it may take this opportunity to hold them on a regular basis. And should the US Congress pass the Taiwan Policy Act, China could engage in further military provocation. China would thereby attempt to establish naval superiority in Taiwan Strait and the South China Sea. If this becomes the new normal, the threat extends beyond Taiwan to other states in the region, such as Korea, Japan, and even as far as Australia. Consequently, the US and these countries should cooperate to keep China in check, even as they take care not to give China any excuse for provocation. So far, the Korea-US alliance has shared a value system. They both afford democracy, a market economy, human rights, peace and prosperity. Even in times of disagreement, the two nations have a record of solving problems through dialogue and cooperation. In light of a changing international order, we need to rework the Korea-US alliance into a sustainable partnership that fosters our collective prosperity. And building on that basis, we need to forge a comprehensive and reciprocal strategic alliance that extends beyond issues of peace on the Korean Peninsula to consider the larger world order. Once the stability of Korean Peninsula is secured and the course to a lasting peace has been set, the Korea-US alliance can finally establish itself as one of truly global proportions. Beyond the peninsula, the two countries will then share the responsibility of resolving common problems faced by the international community as equal partners. In this regard, it is not only in Korea's national interest, but that of the U.S., for the latter to actively intervene in East Asia and further develop the Korea-US alliance with an eye to the future. Thus far, I've covered Korea's past and future. I've shared my thought on Korea's role as it seeks to act as a pivotal state in the new international order and on a new future for the Korea-US alliance. As I conclude, I want to emphasize that we cannot simply wait for the future. The future is what we make of it. Beyond the areas of security and economy, Korea and the US need to move forward to an alliance of values. I look forward to an even stronger partnership as they work together to re-establish international norms and regulations, thereby creating a sustainable new global order. As the world reverts to an era of geopolitics, we must look to the example set by those who built a new world order from the ruins of World War II. And remember, the owl of Minerva flies at dusk. Some takes that to mean the tragedy of hindsight. I am more optimistic. The end of one era offers a chance to spread our wings, emboldened by the wisdom we have gained. Thank you for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Chung. We have a limited amount of time for questions and answers. We'll have only about 15 minutes before Mr. Chung has an event following this one here this evening. What I'd like to do is I'm going to open up the floor. I do have Alondra, where are you at? Okay, I have Alondra in the back there with a microphone. So if somebody has a question, you can raise your hand and she'll bring a mic to you. And may I ask, please, Mr. Chung, to please come on up for some Q&A.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who would like to ask the first question? Back there.
감사합니다, Your Excellency Chung. Thank you for coming and speaking to us tonight. I apologize, I lost my voice recently, but I was stationed in the peninsula from 2017 to 2018 at Weijong near Camp Red Cloud. And I wanted to know your thoughts. We had discussions at the time. I worked in intelligence about South Korea possibly joining Five Eyes. This is strengthening the relationship between the U.S. and South Korea and sharing intelligence. What do you think about moving forward about Korea and the United States sharing intelligence in a more cooperative manner to promote the intelligence community and helping the whole conflict in Southeast Asia?
Yes. Anyway, thank you for your serving in Korea first. The intelligence is very important for the national security. So at the beginning, after the World War II, we have been depending on U.S. about the intelligence. Only the human intelligence, the Koreans were able to get better than American soldiers. But other things we depend on U.S. Army. But gradually, Korea has been improving their ability to get intelligence activity. So now we help each other. And even there is one thing, is U.S., I think, advised Korea and Japan to exchange some informations, especially for the nuclear weapon of movement by North Korea. So that was set up a couple of years ago, but it's been suspended for a while because of the relationship between the two countries. But it's been normalized these days. So I think the intelligence ability of this Korea and U.S. Is a joint troop is very nice at this moment. However, the Korea now is they are trying to improve more, and then someday it could be independent in gathering and using the intelligence. That's what I think. Yeah. Yeah.
We have a question up here. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm So Kim and I'm teaching Korean language and culture at St-Mary University. I actually have two questions. One is about economic collaboration between Korea and USA, and one is about political collaboration. So first of all, I heard a couple of times that during COVID time, Korea was a great place to invest economically, and also a place that was great to do some medical research as it went through it without total closing down the city and minimum quarantine. So I'd like to ask about how the government strategy managed to deal with the COVID situation. And second of all, as a culture teacher, I am very proud to teach my students about democratization in Korea as April 19th is coming. So I'd like to ask you if there is any kind of your favorite stories about Korea's democratization. Thank you.
Yes. We are cooperating each other in between U.S. and Korea and U.S. Economically, I told you a couple of things, IRA and my concern, and some I wanted to be equal treatment of Korean firms to make investment in this country. As you talk about COVID-19, at the beginning, Korea has been known as a successful country to handle that. The first thing was Korea is not that big country as U.S. Its population is quite big, 52 million. However, the land itself is not too big, and Korean system of administration is kind of central operation. So central government and local government, they hold meeting every morning, even Saturday and Sunday. And I was the commander of that COVID-19 control system. So I talked to 17 governors and 230 county mayors, and even police or firefighters, or some other, some cases, civil supporters. We meet by video every morning. We exchange the informations, and in some cases, if the county or the state government asks something, then right away we make decisions. So that was very helpful. So the mortality has been very low, and the hospital system was maintained. So that's because of that, the other countries, the OECD countries, the economic growth was recorded like minus 10% or 9%. Even US, I remember it was about minus 9%. But the Korea recorded is less than 1%. That was the best record among OECD countries. So that was possible because we could handle or we could make this hospital system and the information or make a decision right away. That was we could successfully handle that COVID-19. Regarding the culture, or I think the Korea was very stubborn in the past. However, from the Kim Dae-jung administration, the government did not regulate the cultural area. They just help and let them try their best, including K-pop or K-movie and other things at other cultural areas. So I think important thing is freedom of culture or freedom of art instead of regulating them. So that is, I think, the change. That change was able to make Korean culture blossomed. That's what I think. Yeah.
Do we have another question from the audience? This gentleman up here.
Hi, it was great presentations. I'm Dr. Wang from U.S. Naval Medical Research Unit in San Antonio. Last year, I visited South Korea, actually South Korea military hospitals who specialize in trauma centers. Surprisingly, they accept the personnel from U.S. force in Korea. That means they treat the U.S. militaries in South Korea. So what I can tell you is you mentioned the military conflict might not automatic between North, South, and China, and Japan and United States. But there's a higher chance if anything goes wrong, like South Korea and Japan, all those countries are densely populated countries. That means if something wrong happens, the collateral damages to citizens is quite expected. That means even though South Korea and Japan is not in good relationship, so they might look like need some kind of the collaboration effort, for example, blood exchange program, something like that. But blood exchange, for example, if military actions goes wrong and a lot of citizens get damaged or injured, they definitely need a large amount of blood. So one country cannot handle, so they might need mutual support. But as you mentioned, South Korea, not only South Korea, whole Korea and Japan has very bitter memories. So recently, the Yoon administrations, their kind of approach to Japan encountered like a blowback from South Korean citizens. So is there any way how the Korean citizen and Japanese citizen, ultimately Korean Japan politicians deal with this kind of citizens kind of bad memories? Is there any good way we can handle this?
Yes, we have been sometimes good and sometimes bad, and in the past maybe 7-8 years from Park Geun-hye administration to Moon Jae-in administration, the relationship was very bad. But now Yoon Suk-yeol administration is taking some steps to improve the relationship. I think the Japan has to react against Yoon Suk-yeol administration's approach. If Japan does not make any reactions, maybe they cannot go forward. And that is, the situation right now. And also, fundamentally, I like to say the politicians in Japan and in Korea they have to give up to use this relationship to make some benefit from the struggle between the two countries. As I say, we cannot move from Korea Peninsula to other area. The Japan and Korea is very close countries. So better relationship, good relationship between the two countries will benefit to both of countries. So the government officials, especially the political leaders, they have to try to improve the relationship as much as they can. So now Yoon Suk-yeol administration, even the general public opposed, make some decisions. So now is turn. The ball is going to Japanese administration. So if they try to do their best, not as much as Germany have done. Even half of Germany have done, and then the situation will be improved. As I told you that US, Korea, and Japan may have to cooperate in every respect, but the relationship between Korea and Japan has to be improved. Otherwise, always it will be hampered, or it's not will go very well. That's what I think.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to invite forward, please, President Mengler.
Just another thank you and small gifts of gratitude to you for your excellent lecture and for your presence here today and visit to St. Mary's. Another gift, yeah, from the Grihi School of Business and from St. Mary's. Thank you all.
I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening. We do have some great refreshments out here, so please take a chance and mingle and meet people and enjoy some refreshments, and thank you so much for coming out this evening.